All right, get started. All right, so as mentioned, like on the flyers and stuff and through the Discord, we will just be demonstrating how to host a static website. Static website is essentially index HTML file along with your CSS, your image, and other assets. And they're actually fairly easy and quick to start hosting on S3. So we will be going over that today. As a bonus, I'll also be showing some use of their EC2 instances, which is Amazon's virtual machines. That's what a lot of companies use to upscale traffic with their websites as well as downscale with it. So yeah, let's get started. I'll start screen sharing. Alrighty, is it fine? Can everyone see? Side. We're good to go. Alrighty, so this is just a typical dashboard. I'll take you guys through the entire thing, just to look around. So when you log in, you're typically greeted with the console dashboard. This is where you're able to see, like right here, I have an issue somewhere. I'll configure that later. You're able to check out your costs and usages, past month, current month as well. Able to check out your other aspects of it. And over here, we have our recently visited services. So whatever services you use, like past few days, but you're also able to open it up and expand it and look at a bunch of other services. And today we'll be going over S3, like mentioned, so you could actually come into here, head over to S3. S3 Glacier is a slightly different variant. It has to work more with like physical data. So this is the home for S3. And as you can see, they have videos, how it works, introduction to it, some benefits to it. On the left-hand side, most services, they actually have a lot of stuff on the left-hand side. So like S3, you have your buckets, your access point, stuff with Lambda, your multi-region stuff, your dashboard. So like with your EC2 instances, you'll have your security groups, your auto-scaling groups, a lot of that going on. So any questions so far, or we're just going to be going with the roll? Cool. So we create a bucket, standard stuff, you give it a name. You can name this like workshop number 1. Make sure that's there. And one good thing about AWS is you have many regions available to you. And so that's how they prevent, if one region is out, they're able to transition to another region to use that, just in case, for any failures that exist. That's how they're able to recover. And if we come down here, we have object ownership. We'll be enabling this. If we have this enabled, it allows other owners to access the objects in the bucket. So S3 is a object storing system. So you have buckets, and within these buckets, you're able to store your items. Like how I'm going to show you in a bit, we'll be storing our image folders, our index HTML, as well as our CSS. So for now, we'll have this enabled. And coming down here, we have a block public access setting. We're going to be turning this off because obviously we want access for the public. So we have bucket versioning here. Bucket versioning, think of it as sort of like save states. If you make changes, you want to be able to save it. And then if you make any changes and that change doesn't work, there's some bugs with it, you're able to go back to the previous version. So we won't be needing this. We're not doing anything dynamic or anything. So this could stay disabled. Tags, they're actually related to storage costs. And so this is how you group your categories. If you have a bunch of EC2s used for certain thing, you would put it under a certain tag, and that's what will calculate and optimize your cost. So this is a little bit more into the advanced stuff when it comes to pricing. You have your default encryptions, which we would get in another workshop later with managing keys and stuff. So yeah, with that being said, we can go ahead and create a bucket. And give it a second, and yeah, refresh, make sure our bucket's settled in. Cool. So as you can see, we have our one bucket right here. Again, this bucket's what's going to be containing all of our necessity items. So if we go into it, actually, we will see we have the objects up on the top right here. You have properties, as well as permissions, metrics, management, and access point. So all of these have their own cases, and we will be going over through a couple of these in a bit. So first, we're going to want to upload our objects. And so if we come here into the uploading, it'll take you to this page right here. And in this page, you're able to upload your folder, which I have this right here. Upload. We're going to add our index HTML as well as our CSS. Cool. So like you see, it's pretty easy. Just add your assets. And for the most part, we can go ahead and ignore these because we configured these earlier when we were creating our bucket. So we can go straight ahead and upload this. Got 4 files, all succeeded. That's great. We can go back to our S3 bucket. And now, as you can see, we can see the assets that we uploaded. We have the image folder, and then with our image assets, and then we go into our HTML file as well as CSS. So let's actually head into our HTML file right here. And as you can see, we have a few things going on here, but mainly we just have to worry about this object URL right here. So if I click this, you'll actually see we don't actually have access to the website as of right now. So if you go back, we will actually have to enable something that allows us to push these static websites. So if we come back to the original bucket, we'll head over to properties. Again, even after creating your bucket, you'll be able to edit, like I said, your bucket versioning, your tags, and your encryption. So if you actually go back all the way to the bottom, right here we have static website hosting, and we can go ahead and edit this. And right now it's disabled, hence our website was not working. So we're going to go ahead and host a static website. For the index document, we'll be putting our HTML file. This right here is more for website specific stuff where you write actual JSON files. So that we can go ahead and ignore. And we're good. So we have that down. However, if we go back and click this again, you'll see we're also still forbidden. And so Amazon stuff, there's a lot of stuff regarding security. When you move over to EC2s, I'll be describing the security groups. So we can't access it just yet. There's one more little step we need to do, and that's making it public using the ACLs. Earlier, I showed you when I was making the bucket that we could have it enabled or disabled. I enabled it so the public could have access to it. And we actually got to make the items public by coming through the action bar and making them public using ACL. So once we make it public, we should be able to host the website and have access to it. Come down to our HTML file, object URL, and here we are. Little picture of Jeff Bezos with us in our last meetup that we had. And so, yeah, that's pretty quick way to get the, hosted with the static website. If you want to put something on your resume, there are free tiers. So depending how long you have it up for, they may charge you slightly. Actually, earlier when you guys seen the little charges online, 4 cents and stuff, that was actually after a few months of having one little image hosted through S3. It was like a coffee pick when I was just testing it out for the first time. And so yeah, if you guys do ever just want a quick way to host it, just like a portfolio that you made throughout Straight Index, you could do that. You are also able to push your React applications onto S3. That is a little bit more complex, and we will actually save that for another workshop later down the line. But for today, we're just viewing a static HTML website that we could host through S3. So yeah, pretty quick little overview and guide on how to do that. Before we move on to the EC2 instances, I do want to go ahead and delete the bucket. And if we come here, hit delete, we won't actually be able to delete it because it's not empty. So we'd have to go into it, select all our items, delete them, just check around. And most cases, whenever you're altering something like deleting, you will have to type into here. They'll give you like sometimes, like in this case, it says permanently delete. Hopefully I spelled it right. Sometimes it's just delete, sometimes it's the name of your bucket. So yeah. After having the items deleted, we're able to go back to our main bucket and delete it. So see right here, it tells us to put in the name. So it's workshop number 1. Go ahead and delete it. And yeah, now we have an empty console with no buckets created. We can again go ahead, create it as we want, but right now we will actually be moving over to the EC2. All right, so this is a little bit more, has a lot more to it. As you can see, the dashboard, you have your instances, your auto scaling groups, dedicated hosts, security groups, a bunch more to it. On the left-hand side, like I mentioned earlier, depending on what service you have or you're using, you will have a lot more applications you can use. So like here we have like volume, snapshot, security groups. Before I get started with the EC2, I do want to get into the security groups. So if I come into here, right now I have 2. Typically you have the default one. I'm going to go ahead and launch our wizard one. If I come into here, so what a security group pretty much acts as a firewall. It determines if you should be letting HTTP requests come in, HTTPS come in, or SSH. So that's what security groups usually allow when they manage oncoming traffic into the website. And so if I actually come into edit outbound rules or inbound rules, we come here and see I have HTTP, right? And over here, we see I have 0000. This essentially allows any type of traffic to come in. It's not blocking. Same with SSH, if you were to come in. If you were, you could also add rules. And if you come down here, you can add HTTPS, add the free traffic rule as well. But today we will just be using HTTP. So there is definitely a lot more to immerse with when it comes to security groups. Typically, if you have like a timeout error, it is because of your security groups. So it's definitely something to look at first if you're running an application on S3 or an EC2 instance and you have a timeout error, it's most definitely something related to your security group. So now that we got that ahead of the way, we can head over to the dashboard for the EC2 instances. So over here, same with the S3 buckets. It's empty. We can go ahead and launch an instance. Cool. As usual, we can name it name. We could just do a workshop. And coming down here, we see we have quick start right here. So these are just the little templates for like what operating system you want to use. We have the Linux, Mac OS, Windows, Red Hat. So, whatever you want to choose, you're able to browse it. There are, over here, you can see browse more AMIs. These are essentially pre-made templates that could come with configured settings that you may want to use. They're typically on like the marketplace. So maybe we'll look into that one day, maybe with another workshop. If you come into here, we can see these are different little default templates they have. And we will be using the Linux one today. It's free tier, so we'll go ahead and use that. Laptop's not plugged in, so I'm a little bit slow. Same with the instant type. This is basically the sizing of it. If you were to increase these, it's what you call vertical scaling. As you look through our courses and try to learn more about the cloud and work towards your cloud practitioner, you will hear a lot about vertical scaling. It's actually one of the most important concepts. You have horizontal scaling as well as vertical. So when you're coming over here, you can see I have a 2T micro or TT2 micro, and then over here you have a T2 2x large. So obviously, the bigger you have, the more space and more operating resources you will have. But we'll go with the free tier today. Key pairs, these are to connect your instances through the Cloud Shell or your terminal. If you once you set up your SSH key with it, this is what you would use to connect with it. Network settings. As I mentioned earlier, we had security groups. When you're configuring an instance, you have the capability to create a security group. So if I wanted a new one, I could allow HTTP or the PS. Or I can just go ahead and select Launch Wizard 1, which is what I showed earlier. This is already a configured security group I made, so we'll be using that. Here, it's just configure storage. You could add, you know, how much space you want, your root volume, but we could pass that later. Coming down here, it's a lot more stuff like capacity reserving, credit specification, and the more important one is user data. This is what where we're gonna put our script, and you'll see how we'll host it. Just the HTML website onto EC2 Instant. So if I come here and paste the script, this will basically update and install a package that allows us for request and allow traffic to come in. And then from here, we have our doc type being created, our HTML file. I went ahead and did inline CSS for this one, just so I don't have to, you know, take some time and work through the SSH and terminal to connect another application to go ahead and connect CSS. So I did do inline CSS for this one. And yeah, and if you come up here, we see number of instances. This is where the horizontal scaling comes from. As mentioned, vertical is regarding the size of your virtual machine. Horizontal is how many you're able to have. So I could go ahead and create one little instance right now, right? But I could also go ahead and create 5. If I create 5, I'll have 5 virtual machines running. We will be doing one later. I'll be showing auto scaling groups in our next workshop. I'll be demonstrating how we could scale using 5 and have auto scaling groups, and we will test them and scale more, so it goes from 5 instances to 10 instances. So for now, we'll just do 1. Give a little information for each here, you know, with the T2 micro, and we can go ahead and launch the instance. After there is a basic key pair you're able to use, and we'll be using that. Cool. So now we launched our EC2 instance. You can come here. Battery low. Okay, so if I get into here, we'll see. Let it load in real quick. All right, so right here we have a private IP4 address. This is not given anywhere. It's most likely connected to your virtual private cloud. So that's where that relays. As for your public IPv4 address, this is the one we're going to want to use. So if we click it, we'll actually see it's just going to load and load and load. So as mentioned earlier, we had a security group that allowed incoming traffic from using SSH as well as HTTP. So you come here, put that in. Now we have access to it. We have access to in the user data, we put this little template. As we run the EC2 instance and open the public link using HTTP, we now can have access to our website. Obviously, you're able to do more with it if you want to put, I forgot to put the images, but you're able to do that. That does take a little bit more coding work though in the terminal to connect it all, but yeah, so shows how pretty fast AWS allows you to host virtual machines, create virtual machines, and host static websites. Not just static websites though, your actual React applications, if you're trying to work with any database, pull anything, you know, so yep, that's pretty much a good rundown on just some of the more popular things that companies use when it comes to it. So now, if we come to instance state, we have stop instance. If you don't want it to run, you don't need to. So let's say, you know, you're trying to buy some Jordans from Nike, you know, Nike would probably start the instance, and whatever link you're clicking on takes you to that instance, and that's where you're going to buy it. After the shoe sells out, they probably stop it. They probably don't terminate it just in case they have a restock, so they won't terminate it, but most cases they will just stop it. If you do want to officially end it, you could just go ahead and terminate the instance. Do that, and now the instance will be gone and deleted. So yeah, that's pretty much how you upload static website onto S3, get a little work in it with it. We will be publishing this recording onto our YouTube just in case you guys want to go back and review it. And, you know, of course, if you guys want to add this resume or add this onto your resume, up to you guys. But yeah, for the most part, this is just 2 of the services out of the plenty in AWS. So yeah. So with that being said, any questions? Cool. That
Yeah.
sounds like everyone's good. Oh, is
Uh,
Rashid talking or?
yeah, just one question.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm just a little confused. So, what's the difference between S3 and EC2? What are you doing differently with each like instance or bucket or whatever?
Cool. So S3 is, think of it more as a place to store your data, right? If you want to host your website, you're able to host it like I've shown you on EC2. The main key difference is that EC2 are virtual machines. So this, what I just create is basically just a virtual server, just a virtual machine. That's how I was able to delete it. And the thing is with S3, you're not able to scale as fast as you could with EC2. So if I was to open a host a React app, right, with S3, S3 would be hosting it. If I connect my S3 to my EC2 instance, I'm able to scale it. So let's say I reach max capacity on my React application, right? Then I can open up another EC2 to route traffic into that EC2 instance. And it'll be the same application, same everything. And let's say that second EC2 is full. I can open a third EC2 instance, hosting that same website so my customers or whatever are able to access that. And so that's the pretty much the biggest difference between them. You don't always necessarily need to use EC2 and the user data to host stuff. You typically configure it and connect it to the S3. That way you're able to scale with EC2, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you start with S3 and then once you get more users, you scale it with EC2.
Correct. Yeah, pretty much that. We do have something called auto scaling groups, which automatically does it. You're able to pre-configure it. It won't charge you. It only charges as you grow and use it. So yeah, but typically if you're starting out and you're working with a company, they most definitely will be using EC2 for that. So
All right, thank you.
yeah, cool. Unfortunately, we are running out of time because we only have the base plan for Zoom. It just gave me a warning. So any other quick questions or? Cool. Sounds good. Thank you everyone for coming today. First little quick workshop. Later down the road, we will have bigger workshops, maybe in different portions, or have you guys doing actual hands-on stuff. This was just to get the ball rolling, our first little workshop. So I really appreciate everyone for coming. Hope you learned a little bit of something or have a little bit more idea of like, oh, what can AWS do now, So hopefully that's what you guys were able to gain some knowledge from it. But yeah, feel free to ask any more questions or, feel free to leave. Thank you.